listening to the Sean Light Podcast, a show dedicated to helping fitness business owners escape the chaos of entrepreneurship, simplify the process, and finally grow their business revenue to six figures and beyond. This show is about giving the frustrated entrepreneur straightforward solutions and giving you a real-time window into how Sean is building his company, 4A Health, into a seven-figure business. And now, your host, Sean Light.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Sean Light Podcast. And we got a really cool episode for you guys today. I've never done this before. This is kind of like a spur of the moment decision. Actually, it'll be a spur of the moment decision like a couple of weeks ago. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to really give everybody a window into how we help businesses and how and kind of the way that it all gets set up, how the cookie crumbles, if you will. And Brett, you're gonna need to help me with this one. But today we have Brett. Brett, you're gonna help me with that last name.
Kahanowicz.
Okay, so we got Brett Kahanowicz here. Brett and I linked up. I would say
2 months ago.
I was going to say 2 months ago now. And via Instagram, love that place. And Brett has potentially the most unique business that I have seen in the fitness space, where he has a mobile workout facility. I'll let him explain it because he's obviously going to do a better job than me. But Brett, welcome to the show, man. I genuinely appreciate you being here. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about the business, how you got started. You got a pretty cool background too, man. I think everybody would be really interested to hear it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the time here, Sean, and super excited to be here and kind of be the first to help support this thing. So super excited. But just a little bit about my background. Previous Division I college baseball player, and basically grew up playing baseball and sports and everything. And I always knew I wanted to do something within the sports realm, be it going to college, trying to become a sports agent, and then realized that I hated pre-law and all that stuff.
That'll do it.
I didn't want to learn anything about entertainment law or judicial law. I was like, hey, I just want to be a sports agent. So and so instead changed the route, went to business management, started off at Loyola Marymount University, played baseball there, and then transferred to California Lutheran, played baseball there. And then during that time is when I really got into the performance realm. And so that was my junior season, and I really started understanding what it took to get to that next level of performance. And I started working out over at a Proactive Sports Performance here in Thousand Oaks, California, and because my brother was doing it, I felt like he had a leg up on me because he started in high school. I had no strength or performance or conditioning training in high school, so it was just pure talent because we didn't learn it, and that was early 2000s. So when I got that opportunity, I felt like my game really kind of went to that next level, and then had an opportunity to play within the Dodgers organization for 3 months after graduating, but also still working as a strength coach. So I was actually hired at Proactive Sports Performance. The owner there, Ryan Capretto, was a huge mentor to me, brought me on. I remember my first 2 weeks, it was 8 hours a week of training. And then third week went to 50. He's like, yeah, I trust you. Okay, get going, buddy.
Wow. 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah, 0 to 100 real quick. But that's really what I was like, okay, this is fun. I can do this. But the main thing that really drew me was I was helping that next generation of athlete get to an opportunity to play at the next level. Not saying that they got to the next level, but giving them that opportunity to say, hey, if you continue down this path, this is what it's going to take. So that's really what the mentality was when I was early on. And early on, I was probably they called me the Destroyer. That was my nickname because I probably had the most notches in my belt for kids throwing up. And I didn't know that level of, okay, when do I push? When do I pull back? So when do I throttle it up or when do I throttle down? Sure. So it was just literally boom, 0 to 100 as fast as possible. It's, hey, if you're not throwing up, you're not working hard enough. And
Yep.
I really quickly learned that, hey, it's not always about that result. It's about what's our end goal. And
Yep.
so that's really when the maturity level happened. So I was at Proactive for about 6 years. We went through great transitions, and really one of them was, so we were in a facility. It was a sports therapy and PT clinic, but we also did the performance in that space. And then we were in the process of getting a building, but during that time we were working out of a high school, Agora High School here in Agora Hills, California. And that's really what triggered my business now, was I can train anybody anywhere. And so we had a great opportunity for about 4 months training out of the school. The school was awesome. They let us have a trailer there, but it wasn't a mobile unit. It was just like a fixed trailer. All of our dumbbells and all of our equipment were in there. And then we would just pull it out every day. And the clients didn't care that it was at a school. They cared about the people that were in front of them. So that was the biggest change. Probably that was year 3 when that happened. And that was the biggest change that I saw. Was like, okay, it's not about a building. It's not about all of the fancy equipment. It's about who's actually in front of these clients, who's actually training them, who's taking care of them, and do you actually care for them? So it's the relationship. That was the first time I saw that a relationship is more important than the fanciness of a building or equipment. And then after that, so 6 years there, I got married. And then my wife and she started in Tennessee in medical school. I moved out there after we got married. And then I was finishing up my second bachelor's in managerial and leadership studies, because I knew I always wanted to do something within a business management, own my own company at some point in time, after learning a lot more about what it takes. And from there, I ended up getting a master's in finance. So if you've noticed, I have no phys, exercise science, anything like that. And that's the passion. So during the time at Proactive, I got my CSCS, so NSCA certified. And it was always passion, because I knew I wanted to do something in sports, but I didn't want to go to school to learn it. I wanted to learn it on my own, because that was really what I thought was the right path to go. And
Much
so
more effective that way.
Yeah, way more. And I felt like I learned more because I got to do it at my own leisure, opposed to someone strictly telling me what to do and how to learn it. And I think I learned more that way, because I was able to take a 5-year process of learning even just the basic anatomy, basic fundamentals of strength and conditioning, and then building it up from there, and then starting to understand nutrition. Now, right now, this is the first year I've actually been able to understand nutrition. This is my 14th year of strength and conditioning, but I'm really now diving into the nutritional element, because I've been learning what it really takes. So we were in Tennessee for 3 years at Lincoln Memorial University. I was assistant baseball coach on the baseball team out there. Helped with the middle infielders, outfielders, and then a little bit with the pitching staff as I was a pitcher. But outside of that, that was probably our greatest experience, because that was when my wife and I really got to grow close together, because it was just us out there. And we ended up having our first child out in Tennessee. In Kentucky, we live literally in the tri-state area. You could walk 5 minutes to the left, 5 minutes to the right. You'd be either in Kentucky or Virginia, or you're staying in Tennessee.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that was a pretty awesome experience. Do I want to live there? No, but it was a great time, because I got to appreciate all 4 seasons of the real fall, the real winter,
Yeah.
the real spring, and the real summer. And being in California, you basically just get summer year round. But today is a little crazy because it's raining and it's a little overcast, so it's different.
Hey, every so often out there in California, you get a little sprinkle.
Just a little bit, and it's just like that light little mist. But so yeah, then I had the great opportunity when we were coming back. It was about 6 months before we were about to head back home, move home. My wife was getting ready to start residency. That who's actually one of my interns at Proactive reached out to me. He goes, "Hey, I'm doing this new startup. it's called Sports Academy. Would you be interested on being on my staff? And I go, yeah, I don't have any plans. I won't be back until May. And he goes, oh, no, we're not opening up until May 23rd. I was like, perfect. I'm back May 17th. So I'll take a week to get ready and boom, start. So that was a great opportunity. His name's Nate Barunda. He's now their executive director of strength and conditioning over at Sports Academy. But the biggest thing about Sports Academy that I'll love and I'll always cherish, especially with Chad Faulkner, who's the CEO, gave me the opportunity to be there for almost 5 full years. But he gave me the opportunity to meet Kobe Bryant. And I got to work closely with Kobe Bryant. And I remember we were in a meeting one day, and it was our administrative management meeting. Basically, all the executive directors were there, and it was me, our CEO Chad, then our president, our CFO, our controller, the CEO of our venture lab, which was all of our cognitive performance, and then our executive director of body mechanics, so all of our chiropractic services and things like that. And then it was also the president of Kobe's company, and then their CFO, and then Kobe at the head of the table. Him and I talked for 2 hours. Everyone else was silent. And he was just wondering, what are we doing? Why do we have so many memberships? Why do we have, who are the people in front of our kids? And him and I were just going back and forth. And to be honest, at first I was super nervous.
Of course.
This is Kobe Bryant. He's a legend and he's an icon, but he never played to it. He played to, I don't care who I am. I care about what we're trying to accomplish. And he really had that mentality. Yeah, we call it the Mamba mentality, but he could flip a switch, and he was very much the same as you and I. He was an introvert, but when it came to performance and making kids better and people better, he was very adamant about what are we doing and how are we going to do it. And then he always had a reason. So that was probably the biggest thing. And then obviously the tragic accident was huge. That was the first time that I really lost someone that close to me. I haven't lost a parent, I haven't lost a grandparent or anything like that, but someone who really changed my life. That was a big one, because he really put me into that next realm of ultimately management, understanding people and relationship. Because after his passing, I got promoted to vice president, and that was in March, and we were starting to work on new ideas, new things, cognitive development, and mobile apps and things like that. So he really pushed me to be better. And once he passed, I remember I had to show up at the facility and kind of show face, and I couldn't show emotion. And I've never heard much that wailing or weeping before in my life. And I was there till around midnight, making sure, because people were still coming to the facility and dropping off flowers and things like that. Wow. And then I had the security team just to manage. I didn't leave until midnight. I came home, and that's when I just, like, the first time I was just able to release. And what caused it was I saw a picture of Gigi and Kobe on my phone and it just completely rattled me, and I still get emotional to this day about it, because their impact on women's sports as well as just the world was so great. And they're definitely deeply missed, but loved knowing that family, getting to know them, and just the mentorship that he provided for me was huge. So I was at Sports Academy for about 5 years. And then obviously with all the COVID layoffs and things along those lines, I got laid off in September, as my position was no longer required due to just salary, as well as different moving parts and the organization moving in a different direction. So I got to be a stay-at-home dad for about 3 months, which was pretty awesome.
That's a new job.
That's a full-time job in itself. And so that's when my wife said to me, I wasn't even the one that talked about the mobile training. She's the one that brought it up, but it all came full circle when one of my best friends, Carlos, told me about, it was July. He's like, hey, did you guys ever think of doing some type of mobile unit, like a mobile training unit that you can take to places? And I was like, oh, that's actually a great idea. Like, I should look into that. And then kind of put it on the back burner. I was so busy with all the business development and things along those lines. But then November comes and my wife says, babe, I had like a dream that you had like a mobile gym. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Carlos told me this 5 months ago, and now you're bringing it up. That there's no coincidence. This is something that we should probably look into.
Yep.
So started looking into it, researching, and found this great company. It's called Beaver Fit. It's previously known as Trailer Fit, but they bought out Trailer Fit. They're based out of the United Kingdom, so out of England. And what they do is typically work with a lot of military bases and doing those standstill trailers, but then they started working into actual mobile units. They saw that, hey, there's probably a need here, especially with the whole COVID and being outdoors and people wanting to not go to the gym anymore. So that's how Forge Performance came about. So we started in January. We had the trailer fabricated from December to April. So it took about 4 months to get it all fully dialed in and up to the specifications and parameters that I wanted. And so we've been working out of the backyard, which is fantastic because now we do have a headquarters, but I can go wherever I want. So the mobile unit's a 6x10 trailer, opens once it's fully opened. It's a 7x12. So the 2 squat racks come out the side.
Let me jump in here, Brett, because I just want people to, you should guys go to his Instagram and you got to look at this thing. It is badass. Like it's like whatever you're thinking, it's better than that. You got to go look at it.
Yeah. So it's a Forge Performance Institute. You can go on Instagram or you go to the website, forgeperformanceinstitute.com, and take a look, and everything's up on there. But yeah, it's pretty neat how it all came about. Was there's so much that we've been able to do as far as attachments and equipment build outs. And then it's really put me in a new space of, okay, cool. So I don't really need weight machines. I can use so like right now, we just got new pulley systems to attach to the trailer. So that way, and the weights I can use my free weights. And so it's pretty neat to see that the way my brain's able to work now, it's transferring into more critical thinking outside of the box. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, so everything came about because my wife had this dream of, hey, I think we should do a mobile training unit. And I'm like, actually, that's not a bad idea. And then so when I was like, Carlos had the same thing that he told me. So I did all the research, found out the great company, Beaver Fit. And I love that their slogan is damn strong. So it's DAM strong. Beaver.
They were definitely in like the board meeting when they were thinking about that. And they were like, let's make it damn strong. DAM. And someone's like, yes, we're doing that.
For sure. Because their CEO, his last name's Beaver. So he's probably been waiting to have that slogan for a long time.
100. He's been saying that about himself and nobody's been listening for 20 years, right? Now finally people listen to him. Well, awesome, man. I appreciate that. And I really do think that your story is awesome. And one of the things I like about it, one of the many things, is that it's so many strength coaches and trainers, they end up kind of in a similar route where it's like, I was an athlete or I had an injury and I wanted to be able to show people the difference, because you have that kind of like epiphany, that awakening where it's like, oh my gosh, like this is, it's not all about the volume and that like CrossFit mentality of just go until you drop. And there's a lot more science to it. I was in the same boat, man. Where I remember when I left college and I decided to become a strength coach, I thought I already knew everything I needed to know. I was like, we just mental toughness this thing, volume, and we're going to get better. And what an embarrassment to even say that right now. But I mean, I was in the exact same position. I'll also say that I'm 100% on your thought process there of it not being a coincidence that your wife has the dream and your buddy Carlos mentions it to you a couple months ago. I've seen it enough times in business to know that coincidences like that are not necessarily coincidences, and there is some sort of universal congruency out there when things really come together. And however you want to term that, that is completely up to you, but there's just something going on there, and I've seen it time and time again. So I'm totally with you on that. So Brett and I link up a little bit, I guess in probably late June, I'm thinking, or
Mid-June.
Mid-June. Okay. And what we were kind of talking about was just, the standard, obstacles of opening a business. How do we make revenue consistent? And it was stuff that I've had a really, really hard time myself of like understanding, like what are, like what's a revenue model? And we always run into these same traps in terms of like pricing, in terms of like what you're actually offering, almost on some level, like how you value yourself inside of the marketplace. And him and I had a conversation. I'd like to, we'll get his take on that. But Brett, why don't you walk us through, where you were at that time, and then we talked about like raising your prices and focusing on certain stuff. And then what was the change that ensued after that? And what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah. So when we first got started, I was just trying to get people in the door. It was like, okay, cool. This is a brand new business. Let's make a price point that it's comparable, but maybe it's a little less because it is a different type of training.
Yeah.
People are outdoors. It's not going to be fully enclosed. There's no climate control. Basically, within California right now, heat of the summer gets up to 90, 95. So it's like, I didn't want to deter people. So early on, I think just within the first 2 weeks, we had our price point. It was like $149 a month. And we had about 15 signups. I was like, okay, cool. People are coming. And then we had like a little stagnant. I think that's exactly when we had our conversation was, hey, things are starting to get stagnant. How do I kind of push through? Who do I talk to? How do I get this marketing or stuff done rather than word of mouth? And everything early on was referral based. So our social media was just getting started. And I felt like I was just going through the ringer. I was like, I'm not making any money. I'm not being able to support the family. I'm failing. And I'm like, and then you're like, dude, you've only been open for 3 weeks. Like, calm down. It's like, you got almost 20 clients in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You're doing something right. Like, people like you. So he's like, now start valuing yourself. Like, you can charge more, but you need to tell the people what they're getting. And that was the biggest change. So right now we're at about 42 clients. But so after our initial conversation, this is probably in July, where we ended up raising our prices to, so you get 16 sessions a month and it's $1,000, but then you also get a nutrition plan as well as individualized training program. And then just basically concierge service, whatever you need throughout the week. If, hey, I'm not gonna be able to make this time, can you make it a little flexible? So a little more flexible arrangement for the training. And then most of it's gonna be not like a class based, it's more of one-on-one or two-on-one type training. So people are actually getting that attention that they need for the technique, basically not getting injured. So that way I'm controlling what they're actually doing every single day. And so it's about 4 days a week of training. So 16 sessions, you got to think. So 4 times 4 is 4 weeks. And that's $1,000. Outside of that, that was the biggest change, was the start valuing yourself. You've been in this industry, you know what you're talking about, you know how to educate, and that's what your company stands for. That's the institute element. So Forge Performance Institute, it stands for, so Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron. Performance is unlikely people in an unlikely place doing unlikely things. And then institute, I'm constantly educating myself, so I'm going to constantly educate you guys on what we're doing and why we're doing it. So that was the biggest change when I started actually telling people, okay, cool, it's $1,000 a month, but you get X, Y, and Z. You're getting an individual program. You're getting a nutrition plan. You got me pretty much 24/6. I don't work on Sundays, so you got me 24/6. And they're like, really? I'm like,
This guy's
yeah.
running the Chick-fil-A model.
Yes. Yes. I got to go to church on Sundays. So.
I'm with you. Well, I think here's the thing. And one of the reasons, and really the main reason why I suggested, focusing, because I remember we had the conversation of like, I have these offers and, but I also have this like higher end, like $1,000 a month thing. And I was like, my thought process is like, look, I wouldn't focus on anything else other than the $1,000 a month offer. And the reality is that it doesn't matter how nice of a person you are. It doesn't matter how good of a service that you offer in business. There are mathematical requirements. Those are just numbers that you have to meet. You have to meet your business expenses, your personal expenses, and your working capital. Because if you don't have the working capital, is the third bucket that people don't fill. They fill their business expenses. They barely fill up the personal expenses. And there's a couple $100 left over at the end to reinvest back in the business. The only way you can grow your business is through growth fuel, AKA extra money. So when in the beginning of your business, like I totally understand the rhetoric of, I'm brand new. People don't know me. Let's get my name out there. We'll do $70 sessions or something like that. Sell 5 packs and then all is good. But the problem with that is you're not meeting the mathematical requirements of the business. So technically you start off with a failing business. The other thing that really gets people into trouble is that the way that they come up with their pricing system or their business model in general is they're looking to the left and they're looking to the right and they're looking at other businesses to kind of model somewhat, maybe remix their model a little bit for their own business. The main problem with that is you may not realize this, but 95% of businesses are going to fail. So when you look to the left and you look to the right, the odds are you're copying a failing business model. So if you're not coming out of the gates, out of the box with pricing and business model, you're probably failing. And that's a huge thing to like a huge guys. I started off with selling $19.99 memberships. Can you imagine how many of those things I would have had to sell in order to fill all 3 of my buckets? It was so unreasonable, especially as a strength and conditioning coach who's bad at sales. I've never put the time, resources, energy. I've never become a salesman. And all of a sudden I'm putting myself in a position where I have to sell 1,000 memberships to break even, to fill my buckets. It's so unreasonable to expect that. So in the beginning, when you're not as good at sales and you're getting started, it kind of goes against the grain, but you have to be expensive. You have to be able to fill those buckets or you can never do it. And then you have working capital to fill those lower end buckets. And Brett, tell me what it was like when the cash flow that's coming in is now $1,000 payments as opposed to $50 payments or couple $100 payments. What does that do for the business? What does that do for the mindset of the leader and the entrepreneur in the process?
I was able to buy $5,000 worth of equipment within the first 2 weeks.
Let's go. Oh, I just want to make a note. 1:03 p.m. I'm clipping that one because that is what we need to know right there. That's exactly and that's immediate working capital and growth of the business.
Yeah. So that was the biggest change. As soon as we changed the mindset of the business model, was not so much just getting people in the door, but filling up exactly what the people need.
Yeah.
Not what they want, but what they need. That was the biggest change because yes, I probably talked to about 50 people and they're like, oh, you're too expensive. I'm like, okay. And I think hearing that, I was like, okay, then I don't want to work. I don't need to work with you. I'm only want to work with you if you want to work with me.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest change, was valuing myself. Again, that's what I took. That was the biggest takeaway, was value yourself, because you know what you know and you're willing to learn more as you go.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing. And like I said, we just purchased $5,000 worth more equipment, and we actually had to extend our backyard.
Whew.
So the space now went from 1,800 square feet to now 2,500 because more people are coming.
Yep.
And because they know that, and I'll say this is the biggest thing. They know that when they pay for something more expensive, they're going to want to use it more.
Yep.
And they're not just gonna, when say it's $19.99, I'll just come one time and pays for itself. So
You
it's
get a
kind
better
of,
client that way too, right?
yeah. And they're more willing to work with you. They're more willing to say, hey, these are my struggles. And they're actually going to have a conversation. Whereas someone's just going to show up for a class, do their exercise, and then leave.
Right.
They're not willing to actually invest. And that's the biggest thing. They're investing in themselves now. And that was the biggest conversation that I'll have with these clients now is, hey, you're investing in your health and wellness.
Yep.
And I'm going to guide you along the way.
Yep.
I'm going to be there with you every step of the way, no matter if it's at 6 p.m. at night or 4 in the morning. You just shoot me a text, a call. I'm there because that's what you're paying for. And that was the biggest change of the service model, was being willing to go that extra mile, because people are going to want to pay for that.
Yep. And Brett, how quickly, when you make the decision to say, like, I'm going to focus on the $1,000 a month package, how quickly financially did things turn around?
Well, we went from 2,400 a month to around 8,000 now.
Yeah. And it's quick. It's like in the first month.
It was literally within 2 weeks.
Right.
Because
and here's the thing, like what I want people to understand is I tell them this all the time. And like right now I'm in the middle of a two week free coaching program where I'm trying to get the people in the program to make $2,000 cash into their pocket by the end of the program, because I want to show them how quickly it can happen. And all we did was just say, like, hey, don't do that. Just focus on that. Just sell that. That's all. That's 30 seconds of coaching. And by doing that, like the challenge isn't the execution. The challenge is the psychology of like, damn, like now I'm going to look this person in the eye and tell them that you got to pay me $1,000 a month. Like that's nerve wracking. That's a little concerning. It's a big stretch for people and they feel like they're new into the market or something. And they're a little nervous about doing that. But in business, what you'll find, the deeper you get, the only thing that stands in your way is the psychology of the game, not necessarily the execution. The execution's simple. It's the psychology. Did you have any holdups as to how you were like? Were you nervous at all about saying that number to somebody or trying to get people to buy that?
I think that the most concerning thing was just saying, this is what I'm worth.
Yeah.
And so it was never hard to say this is what it costs, because I've been in it for 14 years, but still I'm more wanting to do just the train. I just want to train. I want to coach. I want to do all that. But that was the hardest flip, was like, okay, what is my worth? How do I value myself? And then if that person doesn't want to train with me, then they don't value my time.
Yep.
And I remember I was reading this one blog, and there was talking about how basically, if you finish a job in 30 minutes, but you charge $1,000 for that 30 minutes, they're not paying you for that 30 minutes. They're paying you for the 12 years that it took you to get that 30 minutes done.
Yes. Yes.
And that was really changed my psychology behind it. Was like, okay, that makes sense. I've been doing this for 14 years. They're not paying me $14.99 an hour. They're paying me because I've done this work and I'm getting them ready to be at their peak and optimal performance, or just in their general fitness. Yep. So that was the biggest change, and that was all from talking with you, our first initial conversation, and then messaging back and forth. It's like, this is what you should just focus on. And then it put my psyche to say, okay, how do I get that? What do I need to do? What do I look at? What do I read? And like, I've been reading a lot of Warren Buffett and things like that. Yeah.
There we go. Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is just investing in yourself. It's like, you've put the work in.
Yeah.
And people need to know that. It's not saying, and I think the hardest thing is those giant commercial gyms. That's what really hampers the mindset of a performance coach, because they're only charging $29.99 for a membership, but yeah, they have a facility that's 65,000 square feet, and they see 14,000 people come in, and they're not having to pay a coach to go train them.
Yep. And they have the capital and investment to be able to charge a price like that.
Right. And that's one thing I didn't want to do. I did not want to have to go get an investor. So I wanted to make sure that I hold 100% stake in this company. And so having those conversations were like, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard, but what is my net goal that I need to cover every single month to then understand how do I get that extra working capital.
Yep.
We're already at the extra working capital because we're expanding, we're already purchasing new equipment, and the trailer wasn't cheap, but it's already paid off. And that's been the biggest thing. Everything now coming in is net rev. It's there's no more having to focus on, I got an expense this month, an expense that month. Are we going to be behind on our bills? Like, no, everything we've purchased has been purchased, and we don't have to focus on anything else. We could just get to train.
Yep. And I want to emphasize to the audience, like the simplicity of this process, and the simplicity of just business in general. Our exchange before this, and like me giving this advice, was done through email. Like we weren't like having like dramatic conversations about this. It was literally just a couple emails back and forth. And that's, that's how it was delivered. And I constantly say this all the time. This just that business is just a wildly simple game, but the challenge is in the psychology of the owner, and that it is like emotionally difficult and psychologically difficult to go through this. Speaking of that, Brett, you talk about valuing yourself, and one of the things that I run into, I didn't necessarily get this vibe from you, but I see like a lot of folks out there with imposter syndrome. And I think social media kind of feeds into that. And you follow these really smart exercise physiologists or exercise scientists or strength coaches who are just like wickedly smart, like weirdly smart at science and biomechanics and stuff like that. And it makes you feel like you suck. And like, I felt that way. I know there's strength coaches and PTs out there where I'm like, I don't even understand. Like, do you go to sleep or do you just read books all day? And the reality is what I always try to emphasize this is, if you are a certified personal trainer, I don't care if you have a CSCS or you have a certification that I've literally never heard of. If you have passed an exam, if you got the ABC, as long as you got something, you are literally a global expert in exercise science and fitness. Like, you're in the top 0.01%. Now, you might not be the top of the top, like the people you're following on Instagram, but with respect to the accountants and the construction workers and the financial advisors who are hiring you to become a trainer, they don't know anything. They know what they see on TV. They know what the big box gyms are marketing and what they're spending the marketing dollars on. They don't, they know Jane Fonda. They know The Biggest Loser. This is what they know. And you have to understand that when you really think about it, like percentage wise, you are way smarter than anybody else, and you need to be compensated accordingly.
Yeah.
So what I want to do now is I want to pivot and transition to helping you further and give the audience a sneak peek into, pull back the hood on exactly what this process is like. Brett, I know we've had some conversations, via text before this, but what are the main hurdles that you're currently dealing with, and we'll try to help you out.
Yeah, so I know we texted a little bit, but the main one, obviously, is school starting. That was been just the scheduling and getting clients, and then asking for proration if they couldn't make something or things along those lines. But those are probably, I'd say, like 20% of the clients right now, not too many. And then also, just as far as myself, burnout. So hopefully within the next few months, hiring an employee, but still getting into that construct of this is how the process is going to go. So the operations of making sure I'm hiring the right person. And then at the end of the day, it's also marketing and getting busier, because I think we've talked about, hopefully we still want to keep the model of the mobile performance, but have a brick and mortar if that's what the Lord allows, hopefully next summer. So
yeah. So the 20% clients, kids going back to school. That's that of all the markets that I've ever worked with. I think that's the most challenging market, because there's so many layers that go into.
It's seasonality.
Yeah, it's seasonality. It is the wildly competitive world of youth sports these days. It's the fact that they don't drive themselves to the facility. It's the fact that they're not the ones that are paying for it. So there's kind of two sales pitches involved with kids and getting them to continue to come. As far as like prorated stuff, I don't do it, and I don't recommend people doing it because again, like the pricing has to ultimately serve the business. And the way that, one of the things that I didn't mention earlier, as far as pricing goes, one of the reasons, like when we first start and we get a client in, one of the things we talk about is like, how much time do you want to devote to the business? How much time do you have to devote to the business? And kind of circles into the burnout side of it is, what's the availability that you have, and then ultimately pricing it accordingly. And I tell people, look, if your price ends up being $10,000 a month, then your price is $10,000 a month. That's crazy, but we just have to find a way to add $100,000 worth of value into your package so that people are getting their money's worth. And then you just got to go find those people. So, that's kind of my take on prorating it. And prorating it doesn't really serve the business. I don't think so. As far as keeping the churn rate of the kids down, I like to always find ways to include the parents into the equation for one. For example, one of the facilities that we have working in Philadelphia, they run an event where the kids come in and it's like a speed combine, and they go through the speed stuff and they go through all that stuff. But at the same time, we have the parents come in and go through like an info session. And the info session is designed to kind of show, highlight what we do. Here's the kids over here. They're doing their stuff. But at the same time, we're kind of breaking down the parents' limiting beliefs and the fact that maybe you don't need to be on 1,000 travel teams. And that being here is actually a better value for what you're doing. And we just provide that service, and allows you to kind of go through a sales script, a sales process, and ultimately get them to believe that it is worth it. Because a lot of times, when you're dealing with athletes, they don't, the parents are just as intertwined in that process as they are. So we always try to incorporate the parents into the sales process as well. What do you think about that? Any thoughts there?
No, that's what I've been typically doing is having the parents train while the kids come.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so that way they're more inclined to bring the kids because they know they're also going to get a training session. So obviously not doing the same movement patterns with the kids. It's more about functional movement and then speed, agility, and quickness. And then the parents are doing just functional strength.
Right.
So, or hit high intensity interval training. So that's been one thing that has been helpful, because I probably would have lost the other 20% of the adults with the kids, that because now they can just bring them. And another thing that I added was daycare. So parents can now come and bring their kids. So anyone from 2 to 8 can drop their kids off, and they get their training, and then the kids. So and that's mostly the midday has been super helpful with that, with the moms dropping the other kids off at school. They have their little ones. So they come here, and everything's been super, super great in that, because I have 2 kids here, so they get to play with them. And because Rowan just started school today, it was a super, super sad day, first grade.
Oh man, there you go.
And so we got the other 2, it's a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So
they're on deck.
On deck.
So the other thing, so are you dealing with mostly like the kids that train with you, are they athletes?
So there's 5 athletes, and then 3 just general fitness and body movement. But technically they're all because I have a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, and an 8-year-old that train with me, and we're just doing, they play sports, but it's just teaching them how to move appropriately into their growing bodies. But then I have the other 5, they're 14 to 18. So
gotcha. So here's my recommendation. So the first thing I'll say is, in terms of like athletes or even just non-athletes in general, this is where the creativity of the process really becomes a thing. So you mentioned that, like, okay, we're going to charge $1,000 a month, and we're going to have like the nutritional guidance, we're going to have concierge service, and whatever else you listed on that stack. What you want to ask yourself now is, like what you're saying is, like, the adults who are paying that rate, you're like, in your head, the way you kind of go through that is like, what else do they need in order to accomplish their goal? And their goal is to get stronger or lose weight, look better, or whatever it is. Like, this is the things. And it's very easy for a strength coach to determine, because that's what we do. On the flip side, it's like athletes, it's like, what are they there for? Like, they're not there to get stronger. I mean, technically they are, but you go a level deeper. They're not there to look better. Maybe they are, but it's deeper. They're trying to become better at their sport. They're trying to get recruited to college. And one of the things that I've advised people to do in the past is you have to start looking at what their actual goals are, and are you meeting their needs? Because while all of that nutritional stuff, concierge service, and all that stuff works, it doesn't really align. It's not really congruent with what they're there for. I've encouraged people to find ways to improve recruiting, link up with local coaches who might be able to come by the facility and check people out, create like mixtapes for the kids so that they can put it up on Instagram and make it part of their like recruiting highlight film. Because at the end of the day, like, that's what they're there for. And even for you, like, what's interesting, especially about the mobile unit that you have, is you could take it out to a baseball field and hold like a pro day or like a college day where like you can invite coaches in. I know there's some NCAA guidelines with that. But when you understand, like, that's what they're there for, they'll be much more likely to pull themselves away from a pro team or whatever other obligations that they have in order to come to your facility as well. The other thing that I've recommended in the past is to consider doing something similar to the daycare, but almost like a what do we used to call that in school? Like study hall. That's what it was, where you actually have a setup where like kids can come from, after school, they go from, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. they train, and then 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or something like that is study hall. And then they can get scooped up afterwards by their parents or something along those lines. And you're just meeting the needs. And the study hall is a nice thing because the parents probably want that too. Helps them out with their grades, knows that they're still being looked after and not running about the community doing God knows what. But I think what you really want to look at are, what are the needs? Now, now on the flip side, Brett, this is my real advice, is that you have to niche down, and that there's a possibility that you shouldn't even be serving athletes, despite them being a fun group to train, and you yourself being a former athlete. The business side of it is like what we just described was two very different business models, right? Like I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were saying, like, Sean, like, I want to start.
You're listening to the Sean Light Podcast, helping grow your fitness business revenue to 6 figures and beyond.
Okay, after some technical difficulties, we have returned. Not enough space on my hard drive to make that a reality, but we come bearing good news. It was serendipitous that we dipped out. Brett, what's the good news?
So the good news is, since we did dip out, I was able to answer an email, and then I got 2 new clients for even more of $1,380 a month. So both clients paying for 16 sessions a month, $1,380, within the same confines of nutrition, goal setting, as well as individual programming, things like that. So,
dude, I mean, freaking, I tell you what, man, I know I'm in the right business because that makes me super freaking happy. That's awesome. And it's like, I can just like, I remember like the feeling of seeing that was just gonna be like $2,600 that just come into the bank at one time. Like the difference and like the mindset, like how you can operate, how you can run a business with that knowledge is just freaking different, man. I'm telling you, people, this is just a different game.
Two clients are paying the same that I had 30 clients paying for. And that's the biggest change, is like now the flexibility of it all. It makes the complete difference.
Yes. Okay. All right. So we only got a couple minutes left here. So I want to, again, I want to be as helpful as I possibly can. So what we did before the technical difficulties, by the way, I invested in these like cool, like breakup segments, like audio clips for my podcast. I've never used one before. Perfect time. Going to have it right now. Right. Okay. So the real advice here, Brett, is to niche down. What I was saying before we got cut off was that I was speaking with somebody the other day, and they're like, Sean, like I want to up my profits, and I'm thinking about doing, I want to do in person and online. And the problem with that, and like I get the logic behind it, but the problem with that is there's two completely different sales mechanisms, sales process. And guys, it's hard enough to get one good consistent pipeline squared away with a good lead magnet, a good sales process, conversion vehicle, and then a good back end side of it with your actual offer. It's hard enough to make that happen. Why put yourself in a position to do two? I'll tell you right now, selling online, it's possible, and it's like all the opportunity of the people in the world, but you still have to do it. It's not easy. Like there's more people to choose from, and you may be able to find somebody out in London who will train with you. But at the end of the day, like it's sales is sales, and you still got to go through the process, and it's just different. It's different than being in person. And quite frankly, sometimes it can be harder because you don't have that relationship. So my advice to you, Brett, for real, is don't even worry so much about what I told you from being creative with the kids side of it, unless you decide to be all athletes. And if all of your business, 80% of your revenue is coming from non-athletes and adults, like I would, like if athletes end up there, cool. But I wouldn't even, like, that's not who I would try to market to. I wouldn't spend mental resources on trying to come up with how you can keep that together. There's a great, I don't know if you and I spoke about this, but there's a great presentation that I did on it's called the $3.2 billion business model. And basically what I am overviewing is Steve Wynn Resorts and Casinos, how he set up his business. He makes 80% of his revenue from 20% of his customers, where they're baccarat players. That's where he makes most of his money, not the blackjack, not the resorts, not the golf clubs, none of that. And everything else is just a intricate sales process leading people up into the baccarat place. He doesn't care. Like, he doesn't care what people pay at the buffet or pay at the golf course or any of that. That's not what he's worried about. Like, that's going to be ancillary funds, and things are going to come in much like you will have with your athletes who eventually fall in over time. But if you focus on the one thing that really generates you the revenue, it's just like the price point. We focus on the $1,000 price because that's what brings in the revenue. Now we want to find the niche that's going to make that happen. So my true advice to you is to decide who it is that you're going to sell to. Brett, there are really only two components of business: knowing your ideal customer and making them an irresistible offer. You've done a pretty nice job with the irresistible offer side of it, and that's been clear by the revenue that's coming in over the last couple months, as well as the last couple minutes. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, by the way, it's so killer that happened during the podcast.
Literally
unbelievable.
3-minute delay, and that's happened.
Son of a gun. So my advice would be to find out who that's going to be, and that's that component number one of knowing your ideal customer. We want to know their needs. We want to know what keeps them up at night. We want to know them so well that the offer that we create at the other side of it meets their needs better than anybody else's in the marketplace. And it actually, so you're a great coach. You're going to get, if they're there, they're going to get the result. But they need to have that communication on the front end, and that's where knowing your customers really well is important. That's why a couple of weeks ago I asked you to fill out that survey for me, is because I want to know things that I don't already know about you. I want to know what are the things that keep you up at night. I want to know what are the things that what are your goals, what are you striving for? And then when I compare all my data and I see commonalities amongst everyone, like that's when I know that like I need to pivot and go in that direction. Case in point is one of the very common threads in all of that data analytics that I collected was that people get their information from podcasts. And guess what we're doing right now?
doing that right now.
We're doing it right now. It's just a sly wheeling and dealing son of a gun over here, right? But that's the game. Like we want to find out where they're going to get their information. Where are they already? Where can I go to them? And then how can I deliver content? Like even the questions that I ask you, a lot of them are derived off of the questions that were presented to me in that information. I send out surveys all the time to try to understand these people better, so that when they are in front of me, I already know them. I know them so well because I just constantly am looking and trying to meet their needs and solve them at a high level. So my advice to you is to pick your niche and just truly fall in love with them. And I was giving a presentation yesterday actually about how most people say, like, my ideal client, okay, 26-year-old female, former athlete, is an accountant now, and just wants to look good at the beach. Okay, like that's a sentence. Like I have written a literal story. I'm not joking. Like I have pages of material. My ideal client, his name is Scott. He lives in Scottsdale, Arizona. This is what I know about him. He lives in Scottsdale, Arizona. He has a gym. He lives in North Scottsdale, Arizona. He makes about $50K a year. He works a lot. He works like 14 hours a day. He was a former walk-on basketball player at Grand Canyon University. And he's willing to do the work. He does the work, but he just doesn't. He's not sure of like the strategy. He doesn't know if he's doing the right things. He's more than willing to grind and hustle. But he's like, I have no direction. I'm just kind of like hoping that something is going to happen. And it's funny when I talk to my clients, I ask them like, does Scott sound familiar? And they're like, yeah, it sounds exactly like me. And I'm like, well, son of a gun. Like, of course it does, right? And that's really business. It is know your client and give them an irresistible offer. And you can't give them an irresistible offer if you don't know them at a deep level. So that would be my true advice to me. Any questions on that?
Oh yeah, so that's huge, especially knowing. I literally just put in survey before they even start.
Yep.
Because that way I'm getting to know them before I even see them. Because
Yep.
normally what I do is I have them come in for an initial tour, and that way they get to know me beforehand. But if I could even get a survey that way, because on the website you can go there and then you can like basically like join the family, and you just click on there, and then so I can add a survey into that, so that way I get to know the clients a little bit better before I even hear from them, and I get an email from them like, hey, this person just signed in. So because obviously I hate to say, I probably am a one of a kind performance studio, and so I do have that irresistible offer. But if I can get to know the clients more before they even come in, that's only going to add to the relationship, because that's the main goal, is creating a relationship. That way, if it's like you and I, we create a relationship. You message me on Instagram, and now we've become close, and we're willing to work together and do things like that before we even had a real initial talk. So if I'm able to do that with clients, they're going to be more inclined to stay, and that retention factor is only going to be increased. And
no doubt. And when you're truly presenting an irresistible offer, here's the ribbon we'll tie on all of it. When you really know them at a deep level, and you can really serve them and provide them like a true irresistible offer, like you'll find things that you like, you'll just see patterns in these people. And the more you speak to them, the more you like do that research, and you'll see these patterns, and you'll be able to give them tools that will allow them to stay more accountable, to meet their needs at a higher level, to get more results, see their results more consistently. And then what happens is that as you provide more value, what happens to the pricing of your service? It goes higher. And when you really speak to somebody and they really believe that you know who they are, and it's not a generalized situation, they're willing to pay you at a higher premium because they think that this is designed for me. And then when we tie that bow on top, when the prices are higher, you get better clients. You probably have to train less. You can orchestrate a process in which you maybe only have 3 products, right? 3 services that you offer, like a high end, like one-on-one service where we really dive in and it's an intimate process, then maybe a small group process, and then maybe a larger group training model, all at premium price points, because you've learned this person, and then you can hire, you can do whatever you want because the revenue's there, the model's there, the customer's there, the data is there, and then that burnout goes out the window.
And that's the end game right now, is
no doubt
limiting the burnout, creating the flexibility, but also servicing the clients and giving them the highest quality.
Right.
And that's been the biggest change, is focusing on quality of training opposed to quantity of people in the backyard.
Yep. Well, Brett, man, any last questions before we head out of here?
No, my man, I appreciate the time. You've been super helpful, and I hope to continue the conversations.
No doubt.
But really, I can't believe what happened just even on the podcast.
That is
making money during
Lord shining down on both of us right here.
Yeah,
right?
Making money while talking. So
No doubt, man.
I'm okay with that.
No doubt, man. That's what it's all about. Well, listen, I could certainly stay on here for quite a while and chat, but I have to give a presentation here in 15 minutes, so we gotta rock and roll. But Brett, always great to talk to you. Why don't you let the folks here know where they can find you, so if they want to reach out and have questions.
Yeah. So forgeperformanceinstitute.com, or follow our Instagram at forged_performance_institute. All of the information's there. You can reach me directly via the website if you have any questions. And I do home programming, but that's not one of my target things, but it's more about getting to know people, as well as if anyone here is in California, Thousand Oaks, Los Angeles area, feel free to reach out. But if you do have any questions, feel free, email me, Brett at forgeperformanceinstitute.com, and look forward to hearing from anyone.
Beautiful. Brett, very grateful for you, man. This is going to help out a lot of, everything that transpired here is going to be helpful. So thank you so much, my friend.
Oh, Sean, thank you. You've been extremely helpful, and everyone else, reach out, because it's game changing and life changing. So
that's what it's all about, baby. All right, Brett.
Love it.
Did you know you can work one-on-one with Sean for free for 30 days to help you build your fitness business? If you want to learn more about how to take advantage of our 30-day runway coaching program, head over to 4acoaching.com and schedule your free momentum call. That's the number 4acoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this episode, and we'll see you back here tomorrow for the next episode of the Sean Light Podcast.